Yeah.
All right. Isn't that cool? Good old
Boy.
Timothy Conley. He had a band called Suck It Easy, the Suck It Easy band.
Oh yeah.
And
I dig it.
yeah, it's their stuff was this cool, like sort of surf music, chill. I don't know. It's the kind of stuff you figure that maybe like Grateful Dead would go to when they wanted to relax.
So that wasn't composed specifically for this show. That's not the Dork Trek theme.
Well, I mean, yes, it was a song called Sky Ray, which is the plane that Scott Carpenter used, the astronaut. I think it's Scott Carpenter. Might be Alan Shepard. I don't know. You'd think I would know this astronaut thing, but this is test pilot stuff. I don't care about these guys until they become astronauts.
Right.
But anyway, that was a cool little thing, and I was saying, we need an intro of some kind, and we had done some funny thing actually with the Enterprise you gave Walker one Christmas when he was young. I just kind of like, here's the special effects, here's our intro. And that's funny once, but you can't listen to that.
Yeah.
So Timothy was like, "Hey man,
I like it. I like it. You should re-release it. You should put it out as a special, like do a remix of it. Release it as Dork Trek theme, the Dork Trek remix or something.
Yeah.
Put it on iTunes. I mean, the market is there. I'd buy it. I'd buy 5 of them.
I have to say, the market really could be saturated at this point because I listen to it on my phone in my car. So there's no difference between that and All Along the Watchtower in my world.
Yeah, that's the great kind of equalizer of like digital media is you put it on iTunes or you just put it on your phone as an MP3.
Yeah.
It just ends up in shuffle.
Yeah, and it's really cool because I actually, the first time it happened, and it throws up on your display, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it says, I think I have it in my phone as Dork Court theme, but it also says Timothy Connelly Sky Ray.
Wait, so you don't...
Well, I took a picture of it. I was like, hey, man, it's out in the world. Here you go.
So is there a Dork... Is that the same theme for Dork Court as well as Dork Trek?
We don't have a Dork Court theme. It should be the other way around, honestly. That's a cool theme for the more generic. But John and I were doing this for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And so we kind of, Dork Court was just a thing we did at Christmas time when the world was kind of stalling.
Yeah.
Dan was doing his thing, but John and I still wanted to talk. And trust me, Mimi wanted me to go and just talk about Star Trek and stop talking to her about Jonathan Frakes or whatever. So we kind of like half-assed it.
Yeah.
But then Steve and Mark were like, dude, you should just like, because we did, Walker and I kind of started, we had Dork Court during the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So he was like, that we did a really fun one where Mark and Steve, right before it shut down, they came over to the house and all 4 of us talked about James Bond for like an hour and a half, and we cut 3 things together. It was really fun.
Yeah.
So in their heads, it's all, no, Dork Court, that's us. We get that. And so I'm like, fuck yeah, man, let's just go Dork Court and split the Trek off. And because, I mean, if there's nothing going on in Star Trek, like there's 3 things that I want to babble about. But like, it'll eventually turn into like, well, the special effects in, Furiosa were great. And I don't understand why, turns into just free will and stuff. And
yeah,
I don't know why I'm contextualizing it for you. You've known me for a while.
It's sort of free association when you talk to Larry Young.
Yeah, stick to the script.
You just get on the Larry Young surfboard and try to surf it all the way to shore.
Dude, that's so funny. I got to tell Mimi because she and Walker came up with a similar metaphor that we got our little inflatable boats, and Daddy's just gonna go off there for a while, and then he'll eventually come back, and then all of us will go again. You can kind of see it in their eyes. They're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, what did I get? We're out of eggs. I remember. And Walker's like, did I do my A-Push history stuff? I'm like, oh, sorry. Yeah, Tig Notaro and Alex Kurzweil were PAs together. Oh, that's all I really wanted to tell about that 20-minute conversation.
Well, I feel like whenever I'm on, we got to talk about Star Trek first, and then we can.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we always got to start with a. You know what I did? I always like talking about the original series because that's where it's at.
Yes, please.
Although I've been because I am now the spokesperson for Pluto TV. They're paying me a stipend to just talk about listen. I've been watching more of the Next Generation on there because sitting around waiting for the next rotation of the original series to come through is like 3 weeks long because they run through the whole Next Generation for at least they go at least once through the entire 7 seasons or something. But
Jesus.
so I've been watching just more of that just because out of boredom, and I've come to have not revised, a rejuvenated appreciation of that show, and it just I did a little homework for this show when you asked me this morning, and I just put on season 5 episode 1 of Discovery, which I hadn't watched in ever. I think I watched the first 2 episodes of season 1 and I'm like, nope. But I watched season 5 episode 1 just to see where the hell they're at because I'm assuming it was going to come up, and I always hear you guys blathering about it and I have no frame of reference. So
Walker Young is with you, man. He's all about the original series. And he's cool with like some of the next gen. He gets it.
Yeah.
He gets why the older guys like it, but he's all about OG Star Trek.
Yeah, OG is where it's at. Even when I compare the OG to Next Generation, I kind of feel the way that like all the writers who quit in the first season felt that there's no kind of conflict among anybody on the cast, in the Next Generation that you loved about the original series,
Right.
I mean, Bones and Spock constantly like undercutting each other and insulting each other, and Kirk, and just that whole dynamic of just kind of got erased by Roddenberry in the Next Generation, at least in the early seasons, where his kind of edict was, no, it's everybody's on the same team and have eradicated interpersonal conflicts in the 24th century or whatever, and so now it's just about them going against whatever the evil is that week. But
yeah, I love that he thought that, but that's not good TV.
No, and obviously they had to break that rule pretty early, and I don't think they made it to an entire season without starting into some of that because it's just boring. It's like the last couple seasons of MASH, where all of a sudden everybody was friends with Hot Lips, and like and like Frank left, and they only had Charles Emerson Winchester to pick on, and then even the last season of, and Klinger stopped wearing dresses, and even Charles Emerson Winchester, they started to give him like heroic episodes and things, and so by the end of the last season of MASH, it's just a bunch of people who like each other, and it's like
in a war,
and just like being all upstanding and saying lots of really self-congratulatory quips to one another. That's doesn't work.
I actually have a theory about this that in modern Star Trek, the old Star Trek was right. I say this all the time. It's the future where Kennedy got 2 terms, right?
Yeah.
And everything that means, though, in Western society, right? So you get to the late 80s and 90s, you were in school, right? Or were you out working by then? But you remember
I graduated from college in 87, so I was working in New York in the late 80s.
Right. So that's when Next Gen started. And you remember the vibe. It was like sort of this post-Reagan, Contra sort of. So I get where the people who were at the end of the JFK stuff were going, no, the only way to fix this is if everybody gets along.
Yeah.
And so then now it kind of explains now where they're all like, they bumped the timeline a little, and World War III isn't really going to start until a little later, and it's because of Trump. That's just really kind of specific. They did that in across 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys aren't really you're getting way too far away from the Star Trek vibe.
Yeah.
And so that's my current working theory, but I still hate Kurtzman.
Well, I think we all went into Strange New Worlds wanting it to be finally the show that saved Star Trek, and wanting it to connect in that way that fans always wanted to connect to the timeline perfectly. And it's the prequel and it's going to fit in, like, dovetail so nicely with what happened in the menagerie with Pike and everything.
Right.
And how is Lon Noonien Singh going to connect to Space Seed or whatever? And it becomes obvious now. How many seasons of Strange New Worlds are we in? 2? We're going to have
we're starting the 3rd one, right?
Yeah, that they've kind of blown past that and are in their own world where it sort of relates on a press release kind of level.
Exactly, yes.
But it doesn't. It doesn't. You go back and watch the early episodes and go, okay, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And that's fine. We just said now it's an alternate timeline. Price kept saying, "Oh, this is an alternate timeline now," and it used to annoy me when he said that. But there's no because I want it to be like, no, they finally figured out how to get it perfectly going in the timeline. But there's no way that it does now, right? And it's probably they're just taking little signposts out of the old timeline and using it as fodder to dangle through things and get you to, like, follow that carrot. And I'm sure some baffle plate will rupture and fuck his face up at some point. But
they've said that's one of the foundational things of Star Wars, of Strange New Worlds, is that he knows that's going to happen in 10 years. He's had that time vision, and I wish they would just stop talking about it.
Right, because it's such how are they going to foreshadow that for the next 7 seasons?
Right. But the cool thing is that I firmly believe that that's not going to happen. I don't
think it's going to happen.
I believe this entire show is going to be like Pike figuring out that your future is what you make of it. And it's because it's very Terminator, if you think about it. Like, as those movies go on, like, Judgment Day keeps moving because it has to, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's just, well, if you're going to name somebody Noonien Singh, I guess you have to address Khan eventually, but it has to move, right? So then at that point, just tell us, man.
Yeah.
It's just this is your version of Star Trek, and if you like that, that's cool. And all the other versions, that's what I would do actually with these Star Trek movies. Just like they did with early Mission Impossible. Give me a John Woo Star Trek. Give me a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek. Give me a Aaron Aronofsky Star Trek or whatever. It's all going to be Star Trek, but it's all going to be different, but we can all dig it.
Yeah,
and exactly. You don't have to worry about, was that Kirk eating an apple? It was supposed to be the Khan thing. And who says Kirk Khan? Fucking who cares? Let's do an enjoyable thing.
Yeah, because nothing is ever connected up perfectly to anything, with what they're doing with prequel-ness. And what made me realize about Discovery watching it an hour ago was it doesn't matter what the hell is going on as long as it feels like Star Trek. And I just turned that on with an open mind, going, okay, now they're 5 seasons in, and now they're 1,000 years in the future or something.
Yes, 900.
900 years in the future, which I think is actually a good move, because get the hell out of the way of their obvious. Get out of the way of that, because you obviously created with Discovery a Star Trek that doesn't feel like Star Trek from the get-go, and you're trying to do Klingons that don't feel like Klingons, and it was a mess.
Yes.
So just fling it into the future, and then do whatever the fuck works out there without having to worry about all the stuff that it's supposed to be a part of.
Can I just jump in though? Like, when they announced that and they did a piece of art to go with a press release, and it's a cast, on this top of this mountain, windswept mountain,
Oh,
with
yeah.
all brown and shitty, and the Federation flag is destroyed. And yes, give me that one, right? They're
Right.
900 years in the future. What happens when Vikings show up in the present day in New York City and demand a seat on the UN Council? Because that's what they did in that show. That doesn't make any sense. But if you're doing that, fucking do it, right?
Right.
No, it's just like, oh, we're 900 years in the future, and can we have a representative to sit on there so we all make decisions together? It's insane. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. My
Sorry,
takeaway.
that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Season 5. What? None of that stars. So you only watched the first one, right?
Yeah, that's all I had time to, and I don't know if I even want to watch anymore after this.
So that's where you're at. You're like, no, you don't understand what anybody wants.
No,
what's going on.
The biggest takeaway I have from it is it doesn't feel like Star Trek. You could do something that's 1,000 years in the future of any other Star Trek and still make it feel like Star Trek, and like give people who like Star Trek something that's like Star Trek.
Like Star Trek.
But and also do what is obviously the edict from on high, is to create a modern Star Trek that keeps our streaming service alive by bringing in a wider audience and a younger audience and blah, 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 blah. But I don't think it's really doing any of that. And I don't think, I sat there and admired a lot of Star Trek Discovery season 5, episode 1, red, whatever. It's red something. But the production value is amazing. They're the sets look really cool, but it doesn't feel like Star Trek, and it doesn't involve you in any way. And that's the main fucking problem with it.
That's what
Stop moving the camera.
You make this amazing point that you don't know what's going on, but if it feels like Star Trek, it doesn't matter.
Right. Just whatever adventure it is, suck you in with the Star Trekness of it, and we'll be fine.
But the opposite is also true, right? If it's a super good story, and the Star Trek guys happen to be doing it, but it's not, it's kind of off model a little, that one gets a slide too, because you're like, oh, well, that's the comedy episode, or that's the soap opera episode, right? Yeah. And so, but they do neither. It's not Star Trek, and it's generic as shit. So what's the goddamn point?
Yeah, you could take the little badges off of them, and call it like, Space Journey, and it would be pretty cool. It'd be like watching Halo or something. It would be like, pretty cool streaming sci-fi that they sunk a lot of money into. It's worth watching out of one eye while I fold the laundry.
Oh, dude, that's me 100%.
You could put on Halo season 2 and go, that's pretty damn good for a outdated video game that nobody really cares about anymore. Yeah. But
when we were in New Zealand in 2006.
Yeah.
On my 43rd birthday and our 20th, whatever our anniversary was, we find out we're pregnant with Walker, right? Best day of my fucking life right there. But then, the day's schedule was to go to Weta and take a tour around there.
Oh, wow.
So that was like the best day ever. If somebody goes, the best day ever, I'm like, that's number one. Everything else is like, but what we saw there was the fucking, I don't know, the wombats or whatever. Weta was trying to do a Halo show back then.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a full scale thing of the Jeep, whatever that was called.
Yeah.
And a couple suits and guns and shit. And they're like,
and I think Neil Blomkamp was supposed to direct it.
Yes. And that was all just like in the yard. And they were like, well, we remind you did sign an NDA when you came in and said, all that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell anybody about this right now because I don't know anyone who cares. But I do. This is awesome. But that's how long Halo's been going. So if that show had come out then, I would have been crazy for it.
Oh, yeah. If that show
now I'm like, okay. I watched like 5 episodes and it's like, I don't know.
Well, even back then, sort of Space Marines was a little bit, played out between aliens and Starship Troopers, and there was some other show, I think it was on Sci-Fi Channel when I worked at Sci-Fi Channel, that I think was called like Space Marines or something.
You don't. You. Oh,
What am I thinking of?
Yeah. Carrie, that Japanese martial arts guy was in that.
Yeah,
And,
it had a really generic title.
Yeah,
like
the woman from
Star Marines or
the
something.
woman from Killing Fields was in it.
God, I can't remember.
What is that?
But it looked
Space Above and Beyond. I love that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
I think that's what I'm talking about.
No, there was another one that was. Oh, dude, I'm gonna have to look this up later. It's gonna crush me. That was on. Yeah, it might have played on Sci-Fi, but that was a Fox show, and it was done by all the.
No. Yeah, you're right. Space Above and Beyond is a different show than the one I'm talking about that was on Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, no, that one. I know which one you're talking about. Actually.
Yeah, it was like
it is. It's
Star
like
Marines 2100 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
No,
I don't know what it was. It's gone into the ethos, and no one cares. You probably can't even find it streaming anywhere. But we got, I think, the devolution of Halo in the mid 2000s. When Weta gave up on it, I think they basically said, "Well, Neil, we really like you. Let's just want to do a movie. Do you have anything in your back pocket?" And there he was like, "Oh yeah, this District 9 thing I want to do, right?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, okay." And they just made that
cool. That movie was great. I loved
that movie. Was ridiculously great.
I liked it. I liked it so much that I was trying to get Mimi to watch it, and she just presses back on that stuff based on like the Blu-ray cover. And I said, "Look, like it's not what you think, and like it's 50-50 if you're crying at the end." And she's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "All right, yeah, really." And she's like, "All right." And she watched it, and she was crying at the end because that movie's awesome.
Yeah, anyway. It really is. It's no Chappie, but it is okay. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, I have a yes. I never saw it, but I
saw it in the theater.
I have one of the motion capture suits from it for a joke.
Really?
I wanted to. I was talking with my buddy Joe Galita, and I just said, I want to do a motion capture suit for Halloween and just walk around and tell everybody like this is the best Hulk costume or Iron Man costume or whatever, just to see if people get it. And I ended up just putting yellow stickers on the clothes I was wearing anyway, and people got it who were gonna get it,
Yeah.
But then, like about a month later, the here's a thing from Chappie I had laying around. I'm like, wow, thanks, man. So,
do you remember those? Do you remember? Man, that movie was sort of annoying. Neil Blomkamp had cast that rap group, South African rap group, Die Antwoord.
Yeah.
As that guy Ninja and that crazy alien-looking sidekick of his were like they had never acted before, and they're like, "Okay, you're the two main like villains in the movie," and they kind of went like just on charisma. They kind of got through that movie. But you should read sometime about the conflicts between Hugh Jackman and the dude Ninja from this rap group.
I remember at the time reading that there was some trouble on the set between.
Yeah, because this guy Ninja just he's like a typical like rap dude whose like ego is like the size of Mount Everest. walking into a movie like, "Oh, I fucking got this, man," and telling Hugh Jackman how to act. It's like, "Why are you saying it like that?" And Hugh Jackman was like, "Who the hell are you?" It was like, I think it came to blows a couple of times.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
I could be wrong, but look it up. I could be.
I hope Hugh put a couple of them claws in his side or something.
But let me put a button on my Discovery thought.
Okay. Yeah.
Just so we can
move on and pretend this never happened.
Right. Yeah. I don't have any resentment for like making me watch one episode of Discovery. I was kind of curious because I get sucked in by the promos, and it was like the promos all this season are like season 5 is the best ever. So I'm like, okay, maybe they finally figured it out after 5 seasons, but it suffers from production wise. It suffers from the same thing that was driving me batshit crazy on Picard, and to a certain extent on Strange New Worlds, although they pull it back a lot on Strange New Worlds. And that's just like, it's constantly taking you out of what's going on because they can't stop producing it. You know, it's
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's
That's
like it
perfect.
doesn't have to. Not every camera angle has to be this dolly shot, you know, this like shallow depth of field dolly shot with everything moving out of focus in the background. And like, no, we don't have to have lens flares in our face and you have to shoot everything as an extreme close up where I don't know where the hell I am and why is everything lit that way. It's like you're constantly aware of them, like making it fancy, you know,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't. And the reason I brought up Next Generation early on is like I've been in watching those episodes of Next Generation. They feel fresh and they don't feel too dated, and they just fucking sit the camera down and let the guy say the friggin' line, and then and then the camera's over here getting the coverage of the two shot like a fucking television show, and like they let the actors act and they let the script, and then you're involved because they're not so worried about like having to go boo at you all the time with all of the shit in there that it just is so distracting. You know, it reminds me of some of the action scenes in the prequels, Star Wars prequels, which in Attack of the Clones especially, where you saw this trailer for Attack of the Clones and you went, oh, finally, we're going to get like real fucking Star Wars
The
battles.
Attack of the Clones, right?
Yeah. Look at all those goddamn clones. And they go to Kashyyyk and the Wookiees battle the fucking, oh, this is going to be great. And then in the movie, you feel like you're kind of floating over the top of it, like on these sort of like tracking shots as there's a battle happening over there. And you never get sucked into it because you're so aware of just kind of being an observer of it through this like moving lens of that nothing has been done to suck you into it. And that's the way I feel constantly. It's the way I felt constantly in Picard. And that's the way I felt constantly through this episode of Discovery. It's like stop cinematicizing it and just let it happen.
Yeah. That point you had about overproducing it, right? That's it exactly. Because wait till I tell you this. You have an idea of how turbo lifts work in the Enterprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't in the CrossFit style ship or whatever it's called, Cross Time.
Oh yeah.
Because this is no kidding, man. Their turbo lifts ride inside an empty space on roller coaster rails. It's like this funhouse thing that Tim Burton designed. And they stopped showing it around season 2 because it doesn't make a lick of sense.
Right.
And it's the kind of thing that happens is they have the VFX directors and they have the live action meat puppet directors, right? And they work separately to the point where it's like, I guess you just have to like do your shit with the people and go insert VFX here and hope for the best. And that when you said, hey, I need to see a quick turbo lift pass, some guy does Willy Wonka, and you're like, I guess that's what turbo lifts are now, but that doesn't make any sense because all of this is empty space in a vessel enclosed. Wait, I don't even, whatever. And like you said, the overproduction of it, probably fun for the people working on it, but it takes the audience right out of it.
Oh, completely.
To the point where I hate those mirrored floors. It's like,
the mirrored floors are it all feels too much.
Trying to hard.
But like in half the I know these shows are not produced specifically for us Star Trekky nerds, and they're trying to make it all super modern so that like when you see an ad for this and you want to buy Paramount Plus, you go, ooh, shiny flashy show. Let me watch that, But half the fun of Star Trek and Star Trek Next Generation and Star Trek the Motion Picture and is looking at the ship and going, oh, that makes sense. The bridge is on top there. And then, they got in the turbo lift and they went down there to engineering. And it makes sense because they got out at engineering. And I can see, even in the original series, those dumb little sets they built out of plywood and gray paint make sense because you feel like you're in that ship and you feel like you're a part of that crew because you go like, oh, they took the turbo lift up and then they got out on the bridge. I know that's in the primary hull. It all feels like it works. And
yeah, which is the achievement is you get that from the show. Like guys like us, we're like, oh yeah, that's where the tube goes down in the Jeffers thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like just like our dads could watch it and go, I understand it's a space elevator. They're down here and then they go up there like I do to work. You know, it's like, but they do not do that. And that's great observation. They don't give you an idea of where things are in space.
Yeah, you don't know where the hell you are on this ship. They're walking through this massive hallway that's going all over the place, getting in a thing that goes and I don't know. Is it even the ship going into warp and spinning around like that? Is that like spore drive or something?
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, let's just drop
that's like the difference between Klingons, right?
Yeah,
that's a perfect example though of overproduction, right?
Yeah,
here's something that would never work in real life, even even the bounds of the rules you've set for this world, and you're just doing it because it looks cool. Just say that. It doesn't really do this. That's what it looks like to the outside observer. Isn't that weird to the ships following us? Just fucking try to make it make sense. But no, look at that. It flips around and you'll never be able to buy a toy of this because it doesn't exist and the engines aren't attached. So like, what are they doing? I just don't get it.
Yeah. And you know, I watching Next Generation episodes recently, you know, I was never that originally I wasn't a huge fan of the design of the Enterprise D and the design of, you know, obviously they were reusing some of the sets from motion pictures and gussying them up. But in retrospect, sitting and watching episodes of that show now, that's a cool place to hang out. And it all makes sense. And part of it, what it does is invite you in every week because you want to be part of that crew. And you understand that place, and that's your home base that you're a part of, and everything outside of that is the threat. And you understand why Geordi is down there, and why Worf is standing up there, and what the fuck he's doing up there, and Data's going meh, 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 over here, and it's all, and Ready Room is over there, and like all of that makes sense because you've gotten used to the space of the thing. And you can't have any of that.
Let me just I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is awesome because you're an industry professional and knows how everything works.
Everything.
Why do you figure those stupid idiots don't get that? Because they're all from, you know, the soap opera world, and you're doing 90210. You have all these standing sets of the fucking Peach Pit, right?
Yeah.
That's the bridge. What all of these things have, you know, in Cheers, the bar is you know, this is a common TV trope. And they don't do it. I don't understand why. It's like other than the fact that it comes from the top, I guess, that Star Trek isn't inspirational and nobody gets why it's a sense of a community that's lasted since the show was on. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, just throw it out and they'll eat it up. Yeah. Because otherwise, core things from why everybody loves it are just missing. Anyway.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Why do you figure that is, though?
I think part of
weirdos.
I think part of it. I think part of it is it's all people who want to use all the new bells and whistles and technology that's out there, and they do use it really well. You know, they're using these volume screens a lot to create backgrounds. They're using all the motion, you know, the motion control cameras and the mapping, the holographic screens and all that stuff and all that stuff is really well done. I think that they're so enamored with, this is the show where we get to use all the toys, that they're just throwing all the toys in there all the time. And part of it is an egotistical kind of thing. Like, we're looking to get hired on the next Marvel movie, so let's put all this shit in here and go blah, blah, blah with it. And then we can put it on our VFX reels that we put on YouTube, and then somebody at Marvel will go like, "We got to hire those guys."
I think it is pretty much that cynical, isn't it?
There's a lot of that, and also I think they're just jealous and want to, and they're probably being told that by the higher ups that don't understand Star Trek. I'm assuming listen. I know for a fact there are people at Paramount who completely understand Star Trek and are the guardians of it and want it to be part of this thing, and want it to be consistent. It's not like it's not like I'm saying everybody at Paramount is just.
No, of course, man.
But
even fans understand that if they don't voice it,
But there are, but I think that there's people that just want to elevate Star Trek to compete with Guardians of the Galaxy, because the Guardians of the Galaxy looks like this, and they have all these crazy ships with holograms that pop up all over the place and all kinds of shiny floors and crazy shit, and like they flip around and blow hexagonal holes in space and go, you know what I mean? Like
I do.
They're trying to compete with all of that stuff that makes all the hundreds of millions of dollars. We need to make Star Trek look like that. I think that there's a lot of that kind of impetus. Whereas they could, I feel they could set themselves apart from everything that's trying to compete with
100%. Yeah.
By being a consistent universe that you can inhabit, and by calming the fuck down just a little bit.
Man, yes. I do.
Yeah. I get that these things, I get that you're spending all of this money on 10 episodes instead of 26 episodes, and you want every episode to have this elevated cinematic quality where nobody's looks like they're standing in front of a backdrop, and it all has this expansive appeal. Go for it for 100%. I'm all for that. Yeah. But they've gone so far with it that they almost feel insecure. You watch these episodes and you go like, you're only moving these cameras all over the goddamn place because you're so afraid that if you stop and let a shot just sit there, it's going to be boring. And not if you have interesting shit happening.
Yeah, the other thing, I agree 100%, of course, as usual. But the thing is that I think is so amazing about this Kurtzman stuff is that he says, like, well, we only have 8 episodes and 10, so like they're all going to be genius. In the old days, you had 26 to 28, and like 10% of them weren't great. It's like, dude, I got news for you. 10 or 15% of yours aren't great either. It's a bigger deal now because you're only doing 8. And I don't get why he brings that up, because anyone who understands simple math goes, no, you suck at the same percentage and you're bragging about it.
Yeah, I would argue that
might be worse.
Unless you're looking at season 1 of Next Generation, which had a lot of clunkers.
Oh my God, yeah.
Or, season 3 of the original series, which still I'm a big fan of a lot of the clunkers.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, The Way to Eden is like the best clunker of all time.
I get why Trekkies go. That's the weak season.
Space hippies.
But I mean, I saw like, I think the only one I ever saw first run obviously had to be late season 3, right?
Yeah.
Just because of how old I am. But so I came to it through syndication, and guess what? They don't air them in order.
Right.
So I don't. Yeah. When I was a kid, I had no bias between first, second, and third season.
Yeah, me neither. Channel 11 would put on, Amok Time followed by, the Savage Curtain, and you never knew which season it was in.
And you didn't care.
No, you didn't care.
Another cool story with my boys in space.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just missing from the new stuff, except Lower Decks. Lower Decks really understands what you want out of Star Trek. It's just all the drunk frat boys writing it.
Totally.
Like if they sobered up Mike McMahon and gave him a live action Lower Decks show, that would solve everybody's problems instantly.
Don't you think that they're going to?
I don't think they're that smart, man. I think there's too many bean counters going, I don't get it. We did the ROI on the PR, and that was TBD. Because that's not, you can't do that to Star Trek. And that's what's
I don't know. Well, I mean, when they had Boimler and what's her name on Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome.
Yes, I think that's the second best Star Trek in all 800 hours. But I don't think they're smart enough to go, everybody wants this, let's give it to them, because it took 3 years of the internet going, where the fuck is the Pike show, plus the CBS All Access thing that comes back over 75% in the optional, what do you want? Give us a fucking Pike show, you idiots.
Yeah.
And they still don't have that in their head. How is there not a live action Lower Decks announced right now?
Yeah.
They're out of their minds. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I would sign up for that in a minute. Just because they were so good, and they obviously felt exactly like their characters.
So good. And
I get why it couldn't. I get why Lower Decks, the live action show, could not be just a live action version of the animated show, because there's so many things they can do in animation that you could never do. You can never move in that like speed of Simpsons.
Here's my pitch. They proved that those two guys could do it. So you give them a ship and new characters who are the reason why it's called Lower Decks.
Yeah.
They're the flight crew or whatever.
Yeah. I love
and
that.
Then make it a 22-minute show and do it at that speed.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. That they would take over, and Paramount's not that smart.
No, I love that, because I think
like nothing else.
You don't want to just bring to life the exact same show that's in animation.
No, of course.
It would never work.
No, wouldn't.
But work. I like that. But everybody loves those characters, so bring along whoever works, put them in a new situation, give them the USS Torrance or Hawthorne or Irvine.
Yeah,
or
something hilarious. The Humboldt.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the stupidest.
Yeah. Anyway, but like we're a couple of schmucks who just love the show and understand kind of how it works, and that's like, how did they not know that? Because they're like, oh, no, we had, my granddaughter had that idea, but so it can't be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Your granddaughter is Bijo Trimble Jr. or whatever. Come on, man. People understand this. Why don't you? That's the part I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm turning on Star Trek while we're talking, because I think City on the Edge of Forever is on right now.
Oh, that's cool. I like that one.
Who doesn't like
that?
It's fun to see my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, who is sort of like Walker, very very tuned into like extreme details of why stories work and why they don't work, and why she really can easily drill down on what the why. Look, it's interesting to take her to a movie, like we're taking her to Furiosa tonight. And I'm going to prep her by. I felt like she couldn't sit through watching any of the movies beforehand.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to show her the trailers.
That's perfect.
I'll show her the trailers to Mad Max, Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, and Fury Road, and then she will come out of Furiosa and have a well thought out. It'll take her a few minutes to kind of collate.
Sure.
But she'll have a very well thought out opinion of what worked and what didn't and why. And it's interesting to see. But I've had her on, I've had her hop in on me watching original series episodes recently. And it's always interesting to see her take on, she'll come in and watch 5 minutes of what the hell were we watching last night? Oh, the Menagerie Part 1 was happened to be on last night. And she stopped, and her initial impetus is to make fun of it, but then she stops and she hears the dialogue and she goes, I could tell she's realizing, oh, this is actually a good episode. And she stops after about 30 seconds and she looks at me and she goes, I've never seen a television show that has such a wild swing between really great episodes and incredibly horrible episodes. Usually television shows will kind of be in here where some of them are really good and some of them are not so good, but they're all pretty good. When I see you watching a Star Trek, it's either really good or absolutely horrible.
That's awesome.
And I think a lot of it is like she'll pop in when I'm like watching Spock's brain, or like,
I totally get what she's saying, but I think that's just her temperament, right?
Yeah, she doesn't have any of the nostalgia of it.
No, not even that. But like when I was a kid,
yeah,
a little younger than her, I guess what it is, maybe because she's coming to it nowish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started really loving it when I was about 10,
mm-hmm.
and so like a giant green energy hand holding the ship is not like the big, like that's cheese fest. I'm like, okay, that's the thing that's going to happen to these guys. Right on.
Yeah.
Or like there's Space Lincoln and the talking rock monster. I'm like, okay. And Beale and Lokai, he's black on his people are white on the left. That fucking blew my mind. I'm like, that's great.
Right, totally.
So it's not so much that they're great episodes and awful episodes. It's that like really great, heady things to talk about are presented in the cheesiest ass way possible.
Oh, totally.
And so if you don't dig on that, even as a kid, I loved my dad of all people, who you remember.
Yeah.
Introduced me to Monty Python. He was like, this is funny. Watch this. And so like, oh, why are you mad that you raised a surreal and absurdist kid? Like, watch this. I didn't realize you didn't know what it was, and you just wanted me to sit down.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my father wants me to watch this. I better be an expert in it. Like, hey, Dad, you want to join the sergeant major walking up and down the stairs? What? So, but I had that temperament to enjoy this stone knives and bearskin shit, and Grace seems a little like she's got some no nonsense in her. Yeah. Not that she can't have fun. She's a kid,
right? But I think it's you have to take into account their perspective of their the production value that they're that they're used to. They don't know what a matte lines are, or like anything to do with stuff that we just put up with for the first like 40 years of our lives, and just like would go, okay, that's
the ship.
That's the ship. It kind of went like that, and like, oh, that's obviously a guy with a puppet, but who cares? It's cool. They can't put up with any of that shit because everything looks so photo real. So for her, like, for her to pop in on a Star Trek episode where they're, as she said, they're watching a television screen, and there's something scary out in the television screen, and then they push some buttons on this panel, and then the thing on the television screen blows up. Like that's
She's not wrong. Everybody says that's the Star Trek episode where they watch an episode of Star Trek.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's pretty clever. It's pretty clever. I didn't think she realized that when we were watching it.
I love that you have this on so we can see it, because as you said, this shot, they do cutting back shots to Dr. McCoy. And I was like, I can see Gracie walking in and going, just like the hairspray on the man alone, Dad. Anyway.
She was, she's surprised at how many of the episodes are, we go to the planet of the gangsters, and next week it's the planet of the Indians. She can't handle Paradise Syndrome.
I know you mentioned that.
Can't handle it.
And Walker and I watched it, and he's like digging it, all the right stuff. And at the end, though, I go, "What'd you think?" And he goes, "Oh, that was great, man. I see what Grace was talking about, though."
Yeah, it's like we have these like fake ass Native American looking leather. They just go raid the.
Right. It was extra stuff.
Right, but the fact that it doesn't, back then it was totally fine to not even bother looking for someone with Native American ancestry to play Miramani,
Right.
or hire some Italian dude to play the guy who's saying, "Behold the god who bleeds."
Turok! Anyway, yeah.
I asked her if she wanted, like the lake where they shot that is like 10 minutes from our house. So
Is it really? That's
yeah,
cool.
we were going on a hike yesterday, and I was like, "Do you want to go to the planet of Kiwa?" She's like, "No."
No. When we went down to LA when we saw you, we were talking about it. I said, there's a lot of filming locations all around.
Mm-hmm.
We pick a thing. We could do Blade Runner tour. We could go around Star Trek stuff. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing, there's a thing at Cal Poly that's like super famous. And he's like, "Dad, I'm going to film school." Like, okay. My bad.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, we should probably wind it up. I would like to
wind it up. Yeah, because
shout out to the costuming people that keep. I know they use this thing because they don't have to keep using. The in Star Trek, it's reuse costumes. So like this fits under the Monster Maroon, the bomber jacket, got this vest, and it also works for the Strange New Worlds. They redid their version of the Monster Maroon.
Oh yeah,
they messed up the lines and made it worse. But
they did.
But I was like, wow, this is cool. I have one piece that works across four shirts.
There you go. Oh, there's your buddy Harlan Ellison. Well, it's like, it's time to make like Kirk and let's get the hell out of here.